some states, in the deep South, celebrate MLK in a way that I did not expect. So apparently Robert E. Lee, who was the general of the Confederate, his birthday is near Martin Luther King Day. So a lot of states in the South celebrate both MLK and Robert Lee on the same day.
Well, I would call that ironic.
Yes.
So, look, the Southerners are never going to let it go. And, I know that a lot of Southerners have gotten beyond it, and I know that they think, well, look, this is part of our history, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not a positive part of your history. It's like the Germans, and I know everybody flips out over this analogy, but understand, we enslaved millions of people. We whipped them if they didn't agree with us. I mean, we killed them if they didn't agree. We raped them. I mean, so comparing it to the Holocaust is not that far off, okay? And if you ask the Germans, they could go one way. They could say, well, that's part of our history. We're proud of it. That's why I hang the Nazi flag, and that's why I celebrate, Gandhi's birthday next to Hitler's birthday. Well, it's part of my heritage, right? Yeah. Or they could say, hey, you know what? That was an unfortunate part of our history. Obviously, we don't celebrate that. We celebrate other parts of our history, right? So celebrating Robert E. Lee, and he was a great general, I get that, right? Is not the right way to go, because what were his skill set used for? To keep slaves.
So if I were living in Mississippi, for instance, and by the way, each school decides to implement it in different ways, right? So some schools say, no, it's MLK Day, right? So they'll celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. So I don't want to make a blanket statement about all institutions, all schools within these states.
And my guess is the black schools in Mississippi are not celebrating Robert E. Lee's birthday.
Correct. But one thing I will say is, if I were in Mississippi, or if I was in another, Georgia, for instance, and I came across this conundrum, the way I would try to handle it is, I would give the historical context, and I would talk about our Civil War. I would talk about the reasons behind the Civil War, and then I would talk about our Civil Rights Movement, and just show how far the country progressed. And I would use it as an educational opportunity. And I think that you could take this somewhat negative and turn it into a positive, and kind of show the progression of this country.
And I'm sure that's exactly what the South is doing right now.
No, I know they're not, but
they love to turn those negatives into positives. So I had a partner at the first law firm that I worked for, and he was a very proud Southerner. And he would take out the associates that worked underneath him to drinks on Robert E. Lee's birthday every year. Now, he was my first boss, my partner, and you can get a sense of where I was heading, even back then. I don't do a talk show or anything. This is my first job out of law school. And he takes us for drinks. He's the most senior partner at the law firm. And he says, to Robert Lee. And I go, and of course, the Ulysses S. Grant. And everybody's like, I can't believe he just said that. Right? I'm literally the most junior guy there. I don't know if I've been there a month or 2 months. He's the most senior partner. But I wasn't going to let him toast Robert E. Lee and sit there and toast it like a jackass without throwing in Grant at least, right? He was not happy about that, but that's a sad day for him.
Were there any consequences?
Yeah, I got fired.
No, you didn't. Okay.
No. Look, that's the thing. I mean, he was a nice guy. And he considers it, and that's why I think it's wrong, but he was not, as far as I saw, malevolent about it. I might not know enough about the guy. So that's why I'm saying I don't think you're necessarily being malevolent, right? So, and he was a terrific guy in other ways, and he was nice to me, et cetera, right? But it's not the right thing to celebrate. And so in a sense, what I'm trying to do is look out for you, because it makes you look bad when you go in that direction. I mean, who celebrates the guy who was trying to protect slavery? Unless you don't have a real appreciation for what really happened during slavery, or you're saying basically to the world, I don't give a damn. And if you're a good guy, you don't want to send that message.